Good evening, good day, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Cluster API provider AWS office hours on Monday, the 22nd of January, 2024. Just a reminder that we abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct, which basically means just be nice to each other. Please add your name as attending to the meeting notes document, which I will also share a link to in the chat window in a minute. And also, if you'd like to add any items for discussion, please feel free to add those to the agenda. There's only a few of us today, so normally we use the raise hands feature if you'd like to talk. But as there's only 5 of us, I think we can be a bit more informal and we can just unmute and talk whenever we want to. So I'm just going to put some items on the agenda for me. So yeah, feel free to yeah, I'll give a moment in case anyone wants to add anything. Cool. Right. So cool. Brilliant. Cheers, Nolan. So let's get to the agenda. So there are no PSAs this week. So we can move straight on to the agenda items. I might just reorder it a little bit just so that I'm not talking straight at the beginning for the whole time. I was thinking, as it's the start of a new year, that we could think about, I guess, some of the major features that we would potentially like to try and get into the provider this year. Maybe sort of like a roadmap planning type of thing. Obviously not as strict because it's open source and things like that, but it would be just nice to at least have an idea of some of the major features that we would like to achieve this year, and hopefully make the provider a bit better. So what I did to that end is let me just bring up the repo. Again, this is just, I guess, to aid discussion. Feel free to interject and suggest different things and stuff like that. So I've added a new project to the repo, roadmap 2024. Really imaginative name, but added it there. So there, I thought the idea is that we could potentially literally just tag issues, go back through the essentially go back through the issue backlog for some of the major features that we would like to get in at some point this year. So I went through and started to add some, like, we should probably support the new EKS pod identity feature. And then that sort of leads on to actually, do we want to support service account impersonation? So that can be used together with the EKS pod identity and things like that. So I guess I was thinking more of, the big features that we want to get in. So I started to add some, and then I also added iterations for halves, or was it quarters? I can't remember. I added iterations, I think, for quarters, just so we could just track things. But I guess the question is, do you think there's any value in this type of approach? Just to give, I guess, go for it.
Yeah, I think I think it would help to maybe write just do a little bit more scheduling. I think for me personally, to carve out time from, let's say, down all the downstream things, just even for regular just for regular sort of work, reviewing and so forth. Um, it would be, I think, helpful to have something written down in the project, like, hey, if you're a reviewer, we need you to do X, maintainer needs you to do X. So it's kind of clear, that um, because otherwise, it's sort of best effort and yeah, I feel like maybe that would help me uh, and maybe justify some of the work, be able to point like, hey, this is what I need to be doing, right? If I'm part of this project, this is like what's expected of me. It'd be
Yeah,
nice to have that codified a little bit more.
yeah, yeah, I agree. So we do. That does remind me. We do have, I guess, do have something, but it's a bit. I guess it's less specific to our project. It's just like, hey, we follow the Kubernetes contributor ladder, and these are the and you go there and it says these are the expectations on you, which um we could make it actually, yeah, I think you're right. We could make it very, very much specific to our project, because there are, things that wouldn't be covered by that. Like, we expect um maintainers to look at the status of the prowl jobs on a regular basis. And these are the prowl jobs. This is where you find them. So yeah, I think that would be a good idea, Daniel. Um, do we have anything in here in our contributing guide? I think we just link out, don't we, to oh no, contributor ladder. We do have a little bit, but it's not doesn't talk about, I guess, expectations and what it entails. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. Um, cool. Good thinking. I guess the other reason I was no, go for it.
Just on the roadmap, I think that's a good idea to have that out. Like you said, it's probably going to be best effort, and I think my suspicion is most of us are here trying to put forward what our employers want in in here, but there are things that like it would be good to have common support and things for people to take um for the project, not necessarily for their employer. So I think having a list of those um is useful.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. Because at the moment we obviously tag issues as help wanted, but for me that gives no priority. Actually, if someone new came to the project and said, "Hey, I've got some time to spare," what is the most important thing to the project? New feature. We can't necessarily answer that at the moment. So I was hoping, like, if we did, even if it's just a handful of big ticket items on here in a priority order, we could point people to them. But yeah, you make a good point, Nolan. Cool. So we could start doing that. We could ask people to. We could either do it as a part of our. We probably do need to clean up some issues. We could probably go through there as maybe in a future office hours. I think we'd probably want a few more people and see what we think are the features that are missing that we would want. Just for, I guess, general compatibility, but also potentially it could be driven by our employers as well. Cool. I will take notes afterwards. Someone's on it. Nolan's already on it. Fantastic. Thanks, Nolan. Um, and Daniel, how did you want to follow up on the clarifying, I guess, the roles of reviewer, maintainer, and what actually that entails? Just an update to the contributing guide.
Um, yeah, I mean, how do we, I don't know. I don't know. Let me follow up with you offline.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. Yeah. Yeah, we can just think about it. Sorry, didn't mean to put you on the spot as well.
Totally fine.
Cool. Nolan, the next agenda item is yours.
Yeah, so this PR has been open for a while, but I finally got time to focus on it. Um, Vince is taking a look on it. This is for full context, this is going to be important to OpenShift as we move from our fork of Cappy to proper Cappy support. Um, we we would like support for a secondary load balancer that resides internally, so that traffic doesn't necessarily hit the outside endpoint from within the cluster. So this is adding that. I do have a few changes to make that Vince suggested. Right now, this change is explicitly adding exactly one more load balancer. It is not support for N load balancers because we didn't want to do a breaking API change. So we're just adding a field that's called secondary control plane load balancer. So if folks could take a look at this and double check things. It also makes changes around how network load balancers are added. At the time, looking through the history, at the time support for network load balancers was added, you couldn't associate security groups with the network load balancer. Now you can, but only if you give it a security group at the creation. So if you create a network load balancer without any security groups, you can no longer you don't get a chance to add more or take anything away. If you create it with one, then you can attach and remove and do all sorts of stuff. So this change does change how network load balancers operate as both the primary one or the secondary one. So yeah, I'm hoping to have some of Vince's questions and requested changes done today or tomorrow. And hopefully we can get this in the 2.40 feature release.
Yeah, sounds good. Daniel?
Yeah. I mean, I can ask this on the PR, but I'm just curious. This sounds like a reasonable. It sounds like using an internal load balancer might be a reasonable default. Although, I mean, I guess there's the additional. You have to weigh the additional cost versus the egress bandwidth costs?
Yeah, and um, it is not creating this by default. It is 100% opt-in. So if you do not define a secondary control plane load balancer, then you will get what you get today. So yes, you do have to weigh the cost. We honestly, I don't know 100% the reason that OpenShift has it. But we're trying to achieve feature parity between our fork of Cappy and upstream Cappy as we move towards it. So I do know there are customers using this kind of as a cost control mechanism and also as a security control mechanism for internal cluster traffic that doesn't need to know about the outside world.
Could you? I don't know if you already have. I haven't looked in depth through the PR. The information, since you have, right, on the OpenShift side, if you have, um, you know how this is being used, why it's being used. It would I think it would be greatly appreciated as part of this PR, right? Adding the feature, let's see, feature parity for you, for anyone coming, to use Kappa to I guess understand when this would be a useful option. Since
Yeah,
like
that's fair.
you right, you kind of right, you've done all of that work, or OpenShift customers, right? They have some idea about, like, hey, good idea, bad idea, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. And I did update the documentation as I was doing this. It's got a few words about why you might want it. But I will consult with people who know the history internally better than I do, and update that.
Thank you. Yeah, it would just be, I think, a great, great contribution because, just to understand, like, hey,
Why?
maybe this is a great feature for me to use. But yeah, I'll try to look through the doc. Maybe you've already covered a lot of it, but
Yeah, and also just kind of as a preview, we are looking at as we move, we are actually changing up how our OpenShift installer works, going from Terraform to something based on Cappy. We are going to look to propose something like this to Cappy proper, to say support arbitrary number of control plane load balancers, but because of timelines, we're looking to maybe trial run it here in Kappa, before we propose a new API upstream to CapB, or break, hopefully not break it, but propose changes to the API for load balancers. But yes,
sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, no, you finish.
I was just gonna say, good point on expanding why someone might want to do this. I will consult people here and double check what their exact reasoning is.
So what you're saying that reminded me of a conversation that did happen upstream in Cappy, I guess, towards the end of last year, which was a new API type for the control plane load balancer. I think that was mainly in the context of the changes to the managed Kubernetes service. But yeah, that's a good point. This would be good. And we should also keep this in mind with the work that Andreas has been doing on rethinking about the future of how we handle networking within Kappa and making it more flexible.
Okay. Yeah, I think ideally we would land somewhere where we don't have these two separate fields. We would have like a slice of load balancers, and we would just go based on the scheme, right? Internet facing or internal. But that's a breaking API change, and that's not what we're looking to do right now. Vince, I see you joined. Can you give any more insight on what OpenShift uses the API internal load balancer for? So I know there's controlling egress costs, there's keeping traffic private. Is there anything more we can expand on in this documentation for why someone might come to Kappa and want to use this?
Well, I think in general, this is also good. It's also like outside of OpenShift. Like we had this request upstream, like in Cappy itself, like to use different load balancers for what they should be used for. So for example, like you would have like an internal load balancer for the internal nodes, but then if you want like access externally, like you would create like an internet facing one. I do know that Azure has already support for both for different reasons. It's because it's a limitation that like you cannot go from an internal network outside of the network if there's no hairpin. So like you can't go back in. But that's Azure. The thing that I guess this adds like to me is like, I mean, for the first iteration, it's like the secondary load balancers could be used for like, internal operation within your VPC. Now, upstream, we need to implement that proposal to kind of pick which one do you want to use for which purpose. Because like, for example, if you have your management cluster in a different network, you want to use the external one. If you want to have everything local, right now, because the load balancer, for example, you cannot, you can create an internal cluster, then you cannot ever expose it. And so this is where like the secondary load balancer could be useful. It's like, I want to expose it later because the scheme cannot be changed. I think we talked about this, like ideally, this is not secondary, but there will be a list eventually or a map or whatever that will let you kind of like do, there's always going to be like a primary like selected, but eventually it would be nice to kind of not have primary and secondary. But anyways, like
Yeah.
this is where we're at right now.
Yeah, eventually we have a slice that says this is internal, this is internet facing, and that's right. Okay, cool. So Daniel, yes, I will go update the docs on that because I got to address some doc changes on it anyway. So yeah, I hope to have these changes done today or tomorrow. And yeah, that's what I have for this one.
Cool. Cheers, Nan. So I'll keep a note of that as well on the issue that we have for tracking API changes when we bump the API to V1, Beta 3, or whatever it's going to be.
Okay,
So we don't forget about that as well.
cool. Thanks.
Cool. So go back to the agenda. So really just to see if anyone is going to FOSDEM at the beginning of February. And if they are, whether we have a Cappy meeting or meetup, grab a beer. But as there's only a few of us on this call, yeah, I'm guessing not. But yeah, if you know anyone from the Cappy community is going to FOSDEM, it'd be good to know. Cool. Moving on. So Nolan and Damiano, you have the next one.
Yeah, I'm just mentioning this for Damiano because he couldn't be here. I don't really know details on this. I know Vince was tracking this more. Looking at adding options for ignition data that is smaller that can fit in user data. But I know there's been discussion about using plain text and where exactly you put this. So I know Damiano would really appreciate some extra reviews. So that's the main reason I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
Oh, Damiano's here. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm not sure why I'm not showing up in the tiles, but anyway. Hopefully you can see me now when I'm talking. Yeah, regarding the pull request, I think so. Vince reviewed it and suggested, like, I think the approach, like everyone has converged to that approach, like with enums and the implementation. The only thing we were still discussing is the actual names for things. We, like, in the last Kappa meeting, we converged on like instance user data, but then Vince suggested unencrypted user data because, and I think that's a good idea, because in the future we could have like encrypted user data as well as a field for the enum. If we figured out a way to encrypt it also for the ignition API, similar to what we do with Cloud Init. So yeah, I am also like in favor of that. And then Vince suggested, instead of S3 as value, cluster object store, because we are actually like storing the configuration for the object storage within the cluster object. So on the cluster object, the AWS cluster object, we have a field which is like ignition, and then we have, like, I don't exactly recall the names, but yeah, thank you. Thank you, Richard. Yeah, on there we have S3 bucket, yeah. So we have the details for the bucket to make it extra clear that those details are on the cluster object, and that bucket is supposed to be like a cluster-wide bucket that we can use for these kind of things. Vince, I think, was suggesting that name to make that extra clear, and also to make it more like independent from the implementation, because it doesn't have to be S3. Like, it could be an object store of any sort. Like, you can have your mini IO, whatever it's called, min IO object storage hosted like in a EC2 instance, and then use that as the target for it. So I would agree with both of those suggested changes. So yeah, I think like, yeah, both you, Richard, and Daniel, we had this conversation like in the previous meeting. If you agree with that, I will make the changes that have been suggested, and yeah, and just make it ready for like a last formal review before merging, I guess.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think they do make a lot more sense. They're a lot more explicit, especially the unencrypted user data. And also, yeah, that hearing the explanation around the the cluster object store, that makes more sense to me as well. So yeah, I think they're both good, personally.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, if you
Okay.
can thumb up under the thread, then I'll carry on with that green light.
I guess one question,
Yeah.
Damiano, one question I had is, it just popped into my mind was, if so we're specifying at the cluster level what the bucket is. So I need to check, but do we document anywhere, I guess, the structure of where we, what folders and what we put into each?
I have not touched any of that area. I think there is a document in under docs, which talks about, or in the wiki we have, in the book, whatever, that talks about like the ignition approach, and I think there we specify what we're storing and how we're storing it. Yeah, should be there. Although I have not like dug too much in that area.
Yeah, no, I, to be honest, that's what I thought I'd ask. But yeah, we can take that as an action item and just double check.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, we've got some more agenda items. Brilliant. Any more on that topic before we move on? No, not seeing any hands. Cool. Vince, over to you for your agenda items.
Yeah, one should be really quick. So upstream we added just like a /agenda redirect so that we don't have to keep like updating these Google Docs links. And I open up here to do the same here because I noticed that our invite is actually outdated and goes back to 2020 something. I don't know if 2023 or 2022 meeting notes. So this way we can just update it in the book, and then you will be redirected as needed. It's kind of nicer.
Yeah, so much nicer.
Well, yeah, I assume that this one was going to be quick. The next one might be a little more. So I don't know how. I think like it has been like a couple of years at this point that we have had beta 1 types, or a year and a half. Just quick questions, like could we deprecate it, remove it from our types, and just clean up the API? Because I don't know about you all, but like the conversions are starting to get under my skin a little every time you update something. But apart from that, like the types are like so close to each other that like sometimes it's also just kind of hard to navigate through the API package or actually see what has changed and whatnot. And it seems beta 2 seems the most useful for sure.
Yeah, I like the idea of having to maintain less. I guess, are there any guidelines that we have to adhere to, I guess, from an upstream point of view?
There are some guidelines upstream. We loosely follow the guidelines upstream. I'd say like, we have had like a few releases with beta 1 and beta 2. And it seems like now we're getting to the point that this is why I wanted to raise this, like getting to the point to where like it's getting less useful to maintain both APIs and rather kind of start, it's already deprecated, like, but we can start like kind of the removal process eventually. And the other thing is, as we want to approach like maybe like a beta 3, like, or V1, if we want, we should probably kind of start removing the old craft.
Yeah, sounds good. And I have in my mind that it's like 3 releases or 9 months, whichever is longer. And it's been way longer than that, hasn't it? Like you said.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a favorite.
Do we want to do like a V1 beta 3 before deprecating the V1 beta 1, or do we just stick with one version and that's it?
Not unless it's needed, right? It's like, I mean, it seems like the beta 2 APIs, like, honestly, it's not ideal for sure, but like it has been working for most. Like I haven't seen like much kind of I don't know, I want to say feedback, but like it's more like complaints. It's like to the beta 2 APIs. Beta 1 has also bugs. It's like, so you can, for example, like you cannot use it with like server-side apply and whatnot. Like that is one of the reasons like it was kind of moved over, and I mean people should just not use it, right?
Are we already marking V1 beta 1 as deprecated or not?
I mean, it is deprecated because beta 2 is out there, I
Okay,
assume.
so it's automatically considered deprecated. Because if it's not deprecated, maybe it's worth like adding some notes on the API and in the release notes saying, okay, this API is deprecated, is going to get removed in 2.5, and then we can get rid of it in 2.5. I'm just a thought.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I think I'm just trying to. I'm gonna go look at like what the.
Yeah, I was just today. I was looking at how like Core Copy does it, and I saw like I think it was like 1.5. They said V1 Alpha 3 is deprecated, and then 1.6 they removed it. So yeah, they just word release and then.
Yeah, so maybe what we do is next version we remove the storage, so we don't serve it anymore. We keep it there, we don't serve it, so we kind of default that to false. Actually, like the storage does not matter because it's already beta 2, or it should be. If it's not, that's a problem, but it should be beta 2, the storage version. So we can unserve it beta 1, and that would be actually I might just do open up here now, so that in 2.4 that's our first step, and then we add that warning and say like, hey, 2.5 will not have these APIs whatsoever. Because if we just unserve it, then there's, folks can still enable technically, but then you're kind of doing something that like goes against what the project is, doing. So yeah, I'll look into it. And then.
Sounds like a plan. And then the question of whether you wait till V1 beta 3, I guess that could take some time, especially if we're talking about some significant API changes. So yeah, they may take months and months, to be honest.
Yeah.
Cool. So we are at the end of the agenda. Are there any last minute topics that people would like to discuss? No.
When do we expect to for? Like, there are those 3 PRs we mentioned, right? That we want to get. Are we aiming at like next week or?
Yeah, I think we should. I think we should aim for get those, the ones that people highlighted as wanting to get into 2.4. Yeah, get them merged as soon as possible. And yeah, release done by, I'd say, by the end of next week. I think is reasonable.
Okay.
I guess the other thing is who would like to do the release? Are there people that would like to learn about the release process?
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to maybe do some sort of like a guided release process together. Maybe like do it together for the people that want it, and then maybe even field me for others' benefits. And so then maybe in the future others can take on the role and alternate or something to make it more like
Okay. Yeah.
shared.
We've done that in the past. I thought it worked pretty well.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I have not been here long, so.
Oh, no. I'm just saying we haven't done it for a while, but getting together to do it. I think we even improved some of the release documentation while we were doing it. So
Okay.
I think it's I think it's nice not to have to do something like that, all on your own.
Yeah. It's also like peer reviewed live, so that's nice. Yeah, so I guess we can coordinate on if it's by the end of next week, we could coordinate on Slack channel and maybe find a time slot where people interested can join in and do it together.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Let's do that. We could actually do that now, couldn't we? Really, to send out a doodle or something.
Yeah,
or time next week. Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. Let's do that. Because I guess, as Daniel says, previously when we've done this, it's highlighted things that you just assume as you do the release process yourself, and then when you have people that don't know it, they're like, well, why are you doing that? Oh, you seem to have done something that's not on the steps. So yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Does someone want to take the action of sending a doodle out to find a suitable time? I can do it, but if someone else could do it, then I'm more than happy for them to do that.
I can do it. Where should I send? Should I just post it on the Slack channel or the?
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. Well, we'll see some people next week for the release. Cool. Take care,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.